Hello, everybody. Steve Bowman here. Welcome to today's Live Better webinar. We are going to be discussing how to demolish diabetes. And one of the greatest things that we're going to talk about today is how to affect and change our lifestyle so we can better address type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, gestational, or pre-diabetes. That's the goal of today's webinar, and thank you for attending. So first and foremost, a quote I want to share with you guys here, because there's such a misconception around diabetes. Diabetes is not and never was caused by eating a high carbohydrate diet, and is not caused by eating sugar. For those of you that like sugar, you can be like, yes. All right. The cause of diabetes is a diabetes that builds up the amount of fat in the blood. That is the cause of insulin resistance. And we're going to talk about a couple terms today, like insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance. But what we need to understand here is that just because high blood sugar is the outcome of diabetes, it does not mean that it is the cause. Sugar does not necessarily cause diabetes. And a healthy individual who eats plenty of sugar, it's not causing it. And we're going to dive into why. So let's level set before we dive in here. Become fully aware of where you are right now in your life. You know, it's December 1st, 2021. Where are you right now? What are the top 3 reasons why you want to live healthy? These are personal. These are things that we all can consider and think to ourselves, what is it that we, want to do, but why do we want to do it? Right? And then we need to think about what are some things that we know we need to change. That's where therapists and coaches and people really can support and serve, is by helping you solve your own problems. And that's what I look to do as a health professional, is just get you to reflect on what you already know you need to do and want to do. All right, so here's the good news. Everything I do with Live and Lead, and we do as an organization, it's important to highlight that lifestyle is a game changer. It is a gift. It not only can help us maintain a strong life, but it can help us, prevent, reverse, and treat health complications as well. And it really comes down to 6 areas: our sleep, our nutrition, our activity, our stress management, our relationships, and avoidance of risky substances. If you were to say, what does healthy eating look like? We would say healthy eating looks like a combination of these 6 areas. So let's talk about diabetes. There's oftentimes a lot of confusion about diabetes. Like I mentioned earlier in the quick introduction, we look at diabetes and say, oh, well, I have high blood sugar. It's sugar. Sugar is the problem. Carbohydrates are the problem. All right. So here's what we have to understand, that they don't even really do a good job of diagnosing what it is. And here's the term they often say: diabetes is characterized by elevated blood sugar levels. Okay, tell me more. But again, think of our modern medical system. We do a really good job of saying, here's your symptoms, and this is the cluster of the problem, and here's what you can do to adjust and deal with your symptoms. We often don't ask, well, what's causing it? Why am I having any of these things? So prediabetes is essentially where you start to become insulin resistant and your blood sugar levels are climbing and they're becoming elevated. Type 1 diabetes is where your body does not create enough insulin. So your body does not create enough insulin, and think of insulin as the key. And I'm going to show you an image here in a few. The key to store the cells in the, or to store the fat, to store the sugar in the cells. All right. That's where type 1 diabetics are insulin dependent. They have to have insulin. Now, here's the good news. A type 1 diabetic can adjust their lifestyle, so they will require way less insulin. Type 2 diabetics are insulin resistant. All right, now that means your body produces insulin, but the insulin is not working. And if you want to know what really type 2 diabetes is, the true definition should be type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance caused by blank, which I'll tell you that blank here in a minute. Gestational diabetes is essentially when you get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes while pregnant. Right. So when a woman is pregnant and she has elevated blood sugar, oftentimes they have you do the fasting glucose tolerance test. And I know anybody that's had a child has done that, and it's really kind of an awful thing that they test and they do, but basically it's looking to see how your body deals with sugar. All right, so let's go a little further. diabetes is an epidemic. You know, we've really heard that term epidemic, pandemic a lot throughout the last year and a half, 2 years, but diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, weight management, they are the most prominent epidemic over the last 25 years. They have skyrocketed, and diabetes is the same. So if you were to look at the last 25 years that are shown here in the chart, if you were to look at this, you would see weight management, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all of them significantly going up. So oftentimes we want to throw around the term genetics. Have genetics dramatically changed in the last 25 years? Or has our culture changed? Has our environment and our lifestyle changed? So why does high blood sugar matter? Okay, so the definition of diabetes is characterized by elevated blood sugar levels. All right, so what's the problem? Why does having too much sugar in your bloodstream matter? And so essentially what it comes down to is that when you have high blood sugar levels, that's considered hyperglycemia. If you have low, it's considered hypo. So hyperglycemic levels can damage your blood vessels, and it increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, vision problems, nerve problems, and the list goes on. Significant problems. Most diabetics will die of heart disease as a result of the challenges with the blood vessels and the issues that we have there. So is it something we want to avoid? Absolutely. Is it something we can avoid? Absolutely. So here's what we have to understand, and I'm going to explain this chart here for us on the right. So this is the biggest takeaway, all right? So really kind of take this in and understand that sugar is not what causes diabetes, period. We need to unlearn that, all right? What we have to learn here is that this image is showing that this is what's happening with inside the cell. So essentially what happens is when, let's say we eat a banana, all right, so that our body metabolizes and digests that food, and it breaks down that blood sugar. It puts blood sugar in our bloodstream, all right? So that energy, sugar, glucose, is in our bloodstream. We use what we need. It goes to our brain. It goes all throughout our body. Keep in mind, our brain needs 500 calories of glucose daily, 500 calories just for the brain alone. All right. So when we starve our body of sugar, we're starving our brain of that energy and the sugar it needs as well. So here's the deal. In a healthy individual, that extra glucose gets stored in the cells as glycogen. All right. So think of it like a checking account is the bloodstream. The muscle cells and the body cells are the savings account. That's where you put the extra money. You know, all the extra money we all have, that's where we put it there. But what happens is the insulin is released from the pancreas. So there's extra blood sugar. The insulin is released. And then what happens is the insulin acts as a key and it opens up the cell to store the sugar. But what happens is think of it like gum and a lock. The key won't work. It will not open up the cell and allow the sugar to be stored. And it's caused by that big word at the body or at the bottom here, intramyocellular lipid. Lipid meaning fat inside, intra, and myocellular within the cell. So it's fat inside of the cell. That is what's causing insulin resistance. So a lot of times we've been so ingrained to think that sugar causes diabetes, period. And we just assume that is true. But what we're coming to find out is that it's the Western fatty diet. Fat is the problem. Fat is the cause of insulin resistance. So keep in mind, 90 to 95% of all diabetics are type 2 diabetics, meaning they are insulin resistant diabetics. All right. So a lot of these individuals are even told to take insulin, and these people don't need insulin. They need a lifestyle change. They need to get the fat outside of the cells. So here's the deal. What we have to understand is it takes time. You can't snap your fingers and it happen in 2 days, but it can happen pretty quick. So once we start to get the fat out of the cells and the fat out of our bloodstream, it can start to clean up and really help us. All right, so we're going to dive into a couple lifestyle areas specifically here, but I want you to understand and reflect on, why do you want to demolish diabetes? Why is it that you want to prevent diabetes for yourself? Why is it that you want to reverse the pre-diabetes, gestational diabetes, type 2 diabetes you have? Better manage type 1 diabetes if you're currently a type 1 diabetic. What's your why? Why do you want to do it? And it's important for us to understand that why, because oftentimes we so focus on the what and the how, but we need to keep focused on the why, because when we have that bad week, we have the challenge in front of us, we need to say, all right, well, I'm clear on my why and I understand what I can do. All right, now taking a look here on the list, you can see these are the things we can do. So any one of us, to prevent, treat, or reverse, here are all the things we should be striving to do. All right, the first and foremost is avoid and limit animal products. Unfortunately, if you had to look at foods that add value, animal products add very low value. And we might say, wow, that stinks because I love them and I eat them and they're a big part of my life. But in reality, they don't really add any value. They give you a lot of nutrients, but they give you a lot of macronutrients, fat, protein, but they don't give you a lot of really good micronutrients, the phytochemicals, the vitamins, the minerals, the fiber, all the really good things we need. So we need to avoid and limit the animal products. We need to avoid oils. All right. Oils are not heart healthy. They are not healthy for diabetes. They are not healthy for cancer. They are not healthy for heart disease. We need to avoid oils. We need to minimize them. Now, we're not always going to be able to say no oil in every single thing you eat, but we can dramatically minimize them. We also want to eat lower glycemic index foods. So an example here is a sweet potato has a lower glycemic index than a white potato. Are both beneficial and healthy? Absolutely. But one is a little easier on your body from a glucose sensitivity perspective. So those are the three areas we're going to focus today's presentation on. But other than that, eating well, eating unprocessed whole plant-based foods, maintaining a diet that surrounds those foods is really good for us. Eating the rainbow by consuming as many fruits and vegetables as we can. I mean, there's a lot of doctors that tell you don't eat fruit, which is crazy. Crazy to me when doctors are telling patients and people they work with, don't eat fruit, it has sugar. It's like, we're supposed to eat that sugar. We're supposed to have that in our day-to-day life. We also need to get to a healthy weight. By getting to a healthier weight, that will also help us with a lot of our blood levels, a lot of our blood lipid levels, our blood glucose levels. Naturally, when we have less fat on our body, it can help us maintain a healthy weight, and it can help with a lot of chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, things like that. We also need to focus on some of the core areas that are really affected, that affect all areas of our health. We need to be physically active. We need to get moving. We need to get enough sleep. We need to strive to make sleep a priority in our life, and we need to make sure that we are waking up feeling rested. We should feel rested and energized for the day. And then lastly, we need to manage our stressors. So now you might look at this list and think, is that it, Steve? And I know that's a lot of stuff, but here's what you have to understand is some of these things you're probably already doing okay and you're doing pretty well, but you can go and say, all right, what are some areas I really want to chip away at? Okay, so you might say, all right, well, I've been, eating more fruits and vegetables. Okay, great. All right, now let's look at the oil consumption. Can we decrease that? Or can we, make sleep a priority, and then that's going to make us want to eat better and be more active and, do a lot of really good things. Hold on a second. Let me mute some folks here. Okay, so again, when you see that list, just understand that it can be broken down specifically into a couple different things. So let's talk first and foremost about avoiding and limiting animal products. And you might think, no, chicken, I love chicken. We're supposed to eat chicken. All right, and it's not just chicken. It's really all animal products. So kind of breaking it down in the why, the how, and the what. Why? Why do you want to try it? If you haven't tried it before, I always recommend people try it for 3-4 weeks just to see how you feel. You can do anything for 3 weeks. So bottom line, when it comes to diabetes, animal products are the greatest source of cholesterol, saturated fat, and they affect all chronic diseases from high blood pressure to high cholesterol to, being unable to maintain a healthy weight to diabetes, the list goes on. They have a lot more of a negative impact on our health than a positive impact. So what we can do is start to understand, well, why could I, or why do I want to consume less? A lot of times people, when they find out that I'm a encourager of a predominantly plant-based diet or mostly or all plant-based diet, people are like, oh man. And it's like, all right, well, what do you want? Do you want to reverse your diabetes? And they're saying, yeah. And it's like, well, if you change your food and you could do that, is it worth it? And then they start to think, yeah. Some people will and have told me, no, I'd rather have diabetes than give up chicken. And I'm like, all right, that's your choice. That's up to you. You get to decide that. But bottom line, take a look and consider, what's your why? Why do you want to consider avoiding animal products? So for example, if you can increase insulin sensitivity, which is a good thing, we want our insulin to be sensitive in our body. We want it to work well. That's what that term insulin sensitivity means. But bottom line, we will feel better as a result. I've helped hundreds of people switch to a mostly or all plant-based diet, and I've never had anybody say they feel worse as a result. All right, so consider the why, but consider the what and the how. Figure out how you can base your meals around other food products. I know for many years, we switched to a plant-based diet about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years. And my wife used to say, all right, we're having chicken. What do we want with chicken? Or we're having, burgers. What do we want with burgers? So now you have to say, all right, well, tonight we're having broccoli. What do we want with broccoli? We're having quinoa tonight. What do we want with the quinoa? Or we're going to have some chili, So basically you have to relearn and reframe how you look at food. But basically you want to go through and figure out how you can surround your meal around the healthiest foods. And if chicken or cheese or animal products are a smaller part, then that's better. So instead of saying, all right, I'm having 2 chicken breasts and a side of rice and a side of green beans, maybe you're having a big bowl of rice with a side with green beans with maybe a few pieces of chicken on top. It's a different way of looking at it. Or you might say, all right, well, I'm going to have the big steak and a side potato. Maybe now you have multiple potatoes, and maybe you have a little tiny piece of steak, or maybe you leave the steak off the plate. But what you're going to notice here is the more you do this, the better it will help your blood sugar, and it will give you that positive feedback. Here's a quick story of Kathy and Charles. They had switched to a plant-based diet a few years ago, and basically everything got better. Kathy had cholesterol issues for 50 plus years of her life and tried everything under the sun, and nothing worked until she stopped eating cholesterol. And they are a mostly plant-based, diet. And both of them had significant improvements. Both of their blood sugar levels that were elevated came down to healthy ranges, and they no longer have to worry about anything or taking any medication as a result. All right. So the next thing is minimizing oil consumption. All right. In the words of Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who is a renowned health doc, he did a lot of research and found out the benefits of plant-based eating. And he tells people, no oil. And he yells it all the time. No oil. Oil is not heart healthy. All right. The only reason why they claim that olive oil is heart healthy is because it is healthier than coconut oil. All right. So if you compare the lesser of two evils, if something is less bad, that does not mean it's healthy. All right. So if you compare the amount of bad fat and good fat in olive oil and coconut oil is worse. Olive oil is still not healthy. All right. So what we have to understand here is that it takes about 1,200 olives to make one 32-ounce bottle of olive oil. 1,200 olives. If you want the flavor of olives, put some olives in your food. Put some capers in your food. Put the whole source in your food for the flavor. But you don't want all that processed, highly processed fat directly enters your bloodstream. And here's what we have to understand is when we eat fat, it doesn't have to be converted to be stored on our body. So think about it like this. The fat you eat is the fat you wear. Dr. John McDougall always says that. The fat you eat is the fat you wear. The higher fat diet we eat, the easier it is for us to store fat. Any excess fat doesn't have to be converted. Just imagine it going right on our body. All right. So again, olive oil is not heart healthy. Coconut oil is very unhealthy, very high in saturated fat. All right. So what we have to understand is it doesn't matter whether it's olive or extra virgin olive oil or peanut oil or corn oil or soy oil, like it doesn't matter. None of it is necessary. None of it is healthy. When it enters your bloodstream, it dramatically decreases insulin resistance. And that is why we need to address that from a diabetic perspective. All right, here's an example of Stephanie and Bill. So Stephanie and Bill's journey, I started working with them a couple of years ago. Bill was the primary driver. It was, okay, let's fix Bill. Let's get Bill the help he needs because Bill had a couple chronic health problems. Stephanie benefited as a result. I was like, wow, I didn't realize that it was going to help me as much as it did because they did it together as a team. But Bill's blood sugar came down, his cholesterol decreased, his A1C, which is a marker of your blood sugar over months, that declined. And since then, it has continued to decline. And again, he's not an entirely plant-based eater, but he has shifted significantly that way. And so he has dramatically decreased, and he's choosing the path that he wants for him, and it's working. And every time I see him, he gives me an update on how he's doing, and he's steadily improving. All right, and then the last primary focus for today is to eat lower glycemic index foods. So what we have to understand here is that glycemic index basically means that when you eat a certain food, you have a spike in blood sugar. All right, so keep that in mind, that a spike is normal. If I was to go in there in the kitchen and grab an apple or banana, I would see a spike in my blood sugar. But here's the deal. If I went in there and had a tall glass of apple juice, my blood sugar would spike way more than if I ate an apple. All right. If I went in there and ate a bowl of brown rice compared to a bowl of white rice, the white rice would spike my insulin way higher. So what that means is the higher glycemic index of food, the faster it raises our blood sugar. All right. So what we need to consider here is how to eat lower on the glycemic index foods. So here's some tips and tools for us to remember, but eating a lower glycemic index foods, it decreases the amount of insulin we need. So keep in mind, insulin is a hormone that we only want to use it when we need it. And it's a natural thing that our pancreas releases as needed. But when we are continually eating very high, sugary, high sugar beverages, highly refined flour products, the chips and the crackers and the snacks foods and all those, what they do is they dramatically spike your blood sugar. All right. And then what happens is your body has to release a lot of insulin to help store them. But in a diabetic, this is problematic. In somebody that isn't a diabetic, it's maybe not as concerning, but somebody that is really looking at blood sugar levels, we need to make sure that we're minimizing this spike as best we can. So back to the example of the apple versus the apple juice. Somebody might say, well, apples, it's good. It's good to have apple juice. And it's like, okay, yes, it's beneficial. It's better than drinking, a soda or, alcohol. But at the same time, it can have a big spike in your blood sugar because it is highly concentrated juice and sweetness from the apple. So again, it's better to eat the apple than drink the orange juice. It's better to eat the orange than drink the orange juice. And it's way better to eat the whole unprocessed grain. So for example, it's better to eat brown rice than it is white rice. It's better to eat, you're getting a lot more fiber, and that decreases the insulin load and the spike. When you're eating things like cereal, like the good rule of thumb is to eat less than 5 grams per serving of added sugar per cereal. So if you're going out there and you're buying Honey Nut Cheerios and it says 15 grams of sugar per serving, it's too much. But if you go and get unsweetened, I don't think you call it unsweetened, but the low sugar added or no sugar added Cheerios, it's good because it's 2 or 3 grams of sugar per serving. All right. So what we have to understand here is what are some things we can do to really set ourselves up for success? So for some of you that are looking to just prevent diabetes, all the things we're talking about today can help. But for those of you that are looking to treat and reverse your prediabetes or your type 2 diabetes or better manage type 1, this is something that we should be aware of. All right. So just figure out, and again, you don't need to go through and track every single thing you're eating, but just be consciously aware and know that you're making the choice of something that may be better than the other. All right. Here's a quick story about Scott. So basically pre-diabetic for many years, and his blood sugar came down pretty quick after switching to a plant-based diet. Still teeters every now and then with, trying to keep animal products out, keep oils out, but by keeping in check, not only was he able to get off blood pressure meds, but he was also able to get his blood sugar within healthy ranges. All right. So at the end of the day, healthy living, like I said, consists of these 6 areas. So a lot of what we're talking about today is nutrition focused, but all of these tied together are what really sets us up for success. And bottom line, the message is we can live better. All of us can. So the first thing that I want everybody to be fully aware of is that change is necessary. What's the quote? Doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. That's the definition of insanity. Oftentimes we do that. We kind of hope for the best and we do the same things and hope that it will change. But you have to know that change is necessary. And not only is it necessary, it's possible. So you have to first address your mindset. You have to know your why and know your purpose and your values and understand that you have to commit to it. You have to fully make a commitment to change. And change is something that we have to understand that it's a process. It's not something that you can snap your fingers and say, oh, I fixed 50 years of problems overnight. It doesn't work like that. People gain 1 pound at a time and they have to lose 1 pound at a time. All right. So sometimes we always want to focus on the instant gratification, the instant win. But what I can tell you is that when we commit to the long-term process of behavior change, good things can happen over time. All right, so a couple of reflection questions. 12 months from now, what would a good 12 months look like for you? 1 year from now, next Christmas, getting ready for December 1st of 2022. What does that look like for you? Are you free of medications? Are all of your metrics within good levels? Are you at a healthy weight that you feel happy and confident in? Are you able to kind of do the things you want in your life? Are you able to live out your purpose? What is it for you? And then what are some behaviors that you would like to change in the next 90 days? Now think about that. Are you able and willing to change your nutrition? Are you ready and willing to start incorporating more exercise into your life, or make sleep a priority, or figure out how you can both improve your quality and quantity of sleep? Can you create healthier relationships? You know the answer here. You know what you want to do. It's just a matter of what is it that you want to do. All right, so quick mention of a few things. Just want to call out here that, no, hold on, the program might close. Hang tight, guys. So this gives us time to really pause and think, what is it that you want to do? But my question to all of you is, do you want to be a testimonial? 3 months from now, 12 months from now, not for me, but just in general. Do you want to be an example of how you decided to make a choice or make a change? You implemented it, you sought it out, you committed to it, and now you're on the other end. What I can tell you is that you're going to be able to inspire so many people. All right, so let me jump through here. We are in the process of wrapping up a course specific to type 2 and type 1 diabetes, how to really address insulin resistance. And so that will be coming soon. But basically, we focus all around lifestyle. Like the